Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast. Thank you for taking time to tune in today. We have our weekly Big Ten episode. We are going to dive into the fallen Blue Bloods in the Big Ten, Michigan Wolverines and USC Trojans. Kind of talk about what they might need to do to get back, because on this podcast we are 100% in favor of Big Ten strength, Big Ten success, and Big Ten power up and down the conference. We think it's the best thing for Ohio State. But we're also going to do a little bit of a roundup on some of the other Big Ten action going on. So if you are a Buckeye fan who's tuning in, we're making first this week on the Scarlet and Rage podcast. We went live on our Buckeye episode earlier this week, and we are going live here tonight. We haven't gone live since the Michigan post game in Alabama. That's the only time we have gone live, and so we may be doing it more often moving forward. So thank you guys for tuning in, whoever may tune in and watch this Big Ten Roundup live. Rage, get us going on this Big Ten Roundup. I know we're going to talk a lot about Michigan, USC. I think you've got a little bit to say about Indiana, maybe a couple of other programs, but what you got going on tonight? What you got for us?
Well, first and foremost, man, I'm actually really fucking tired. I actually returned to martial arts for the first time in 5.5 months this morning, Michael.
Jay, we're in the first 10 minutes of the episode. You're supposed to save the F words for 10 minutes and 1 second.
Oh, yeah. Well,
remember?
I'm tired, man. My brain is like not working right tonight, but I'm going to do my best. But yeah, man, it was good to get back in the gym. So I guess we'll just get right into Michigan, man. Guys, I know we have a huge Michigan following on this podcast because you know that we followed your team all the way to winning the national championship last year.
Yes,
and
we
were really, really happy for you guys. We were really happy for the Big Ten. We were happy for Ohio State because at the end of the day, Ohio State benefited. They didn't benefit as much as Michigan, but Ohio State actually, went to work in the transfer portal. Ryan Day seemed like a new coach and everything. That really hasn't changed anything. But, he hired Chip Kelly. Fired himself as offensive coordinator, quote unquote. But, here you guys are. If you go back and backtrack, Michael, do you remember when we did the episode when Jim Harbaugh left to California and Michigan hastily hired Sharon Moore?
I remember that well. And I remember that some of our beloved and esteemed Michigan brethren that tune in to this show and are so complimentary in the comments were not totally in agreement with us on our call that was not the right move to hire Sharon Moore. We tried to tell them, I get it. You were in the glow of a national championship. I understand why you were like, yeah, it'll be fine. But that's what we try to do on this podcast. We try to look forward. We try to connect the dots, and we try to project. Obviously, we're not always right, but it seems like we're right a decent amount of the time, Rage. And this is one of those cases that I believe is proving to be true, that we were right. I don't think that was the right hire.
No, absolutely not. It was not the right hire. Just common sense wise, you go back to that episode, Sharon Moore, yeah, great offensive line coach, pretty good recruiter. He did great in Jim Harbaugh's absence. But the fact of the matter is the guy didn't have any head coaching experience coming in. He's still like a younger guy. I believe he's only 38 years old or something like that. So, he's kind of in the similar situation to Ryan Day. It's like, okay, Michigan had a lot of success with their previous head coach, probably their best head coach in the history of their program. And you fill his vacant spot in with a coach with absolutely no experience. And they basically had an emotional high and they wanted to keep the team together. But that is just, common sense wise, that is just not the answer for Michigan. That is, you got to be able to have a legit coaching search, check around the country, feel the pulse of coaches around the country. And yeah, if you still end up with Sharon Moore, that's one thing. But I don't believe they even had a legitimate coaching search during that entire time. And now I believe that, like, are they like 500 right now? What's their record right now, Michael? Michigan.
No. I think Michigan will be very pleased to end up this season 500. I don't think they are 500. Let me look that up real quick. Um,
I think they might be
the
4-3.
let's see, what are they? Why does that not come out? I did some research. I did some research on Michigan over this week. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute, but maybe I should have researched what their record is. Yeah, you're right. They're 4-3. Yeah.
I
They're
just
4-3.
thought I thought they were 4-3. I knew they weren't 500.
But Michigan does not have a soft spot really in the schedule this year. I mean, they've got a tough schedule. Pretty much both halves. However, their tougher half is to come, so it is going to be a challenge for them to end up 500. They might be able to get a win against Sparty this weekend. Might not. I don't know, but they do have a tough slate coming up. Oregon, number 1, Indiana, number 13, Northwestern. Of course, that's not a tough one, but with the Michigan offense, everything can be a challenge this year. And then, of course, they've got our number 4 Buckeyes at the Shoe, Ohio Stadium, on that last weekend of November. Ryan Day is going to see if he can snap that 3-game losing streak over the Michigan Wolverines. But yeah, my theory
Which
of
I
the
don't
case,
put much stock in, by the way. I don't put any stock into that game for Ryan Day.
My theory of the case last year, Jay, and I think it was probably your theory of the case as well, or at least something similar, was that it was a great team. 2023 Michigan was just a very good team. There's no other way you can really describe it other than that. However, they were losing a lot off of that team. Jim Harbaugh was obviously leaving. When Jim Harbaugh was leaving, he was also plucking much of their coaching staff. So there was a massive amount of turnover coming one way or the other. You were not preserving a roster that was like a composite top 7, top 10 roster in the country. It just wasn't that. I don't know what their composite is this year, Jay. I haven't looked that up, but it wasn't an overly talented team coming back. They certainly had some talented, but they were going to take some lumps this year, regardless of who the coach was. So my theory of the case is continuity is not that important in their scenario. I understand Ryan Day inherited a different scenario. He inherited a top 5 composite roster. He inherited a team with quite a few guys coming back. Really only had one hole, had to go out and get a quarterback. So I understand while, I wasn't a huge fan of it, I understand the thinking with Ohio State back at that time. With Michigan, I did not understand the thinking. I thought it was a little bit lazy.
It reminded me of the search of Ryan Day.
Oh, yeah, no search.
Yeah, there was none at all. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It was a lazy search, and now they're paying for it. And I was actually listening to another Michigan podcast like earlier in the week. Is Steve Dace is the guy's name. I have a lot of respect for that guy.
Yeah.
He was saying that, sure, he was saying like he would take 7 and 5, but now he's not sure that they could finish with that record. But I mean, I'd have to look more deep into their schedule. But I can tell you that he's very concerned. And Sharon Moore is absolutely on the hot seat. They lose to Michigan State this weekend, like all bets are off. Like, losing at home to Michigan State, who's just okay. They're not that good. But, as time went on, they weren't as good as I even thought. But, for them to lose at home to their biggest rival would just be, that almost like the nail in the coffin type thing.
Yeah, I listened to that same podcast as well. And there's legitimate concerns. Possibly, I had a theory last week that the Ohio State basketball hire to keep the interim, maybe that was a short-term hire. They were kind of like, not a lot to lose. We're not going to give him a massive contract. If he doesn't do well,
fucking bullshit, man.
If he doesn't do well in the first year, then maybe it'll be a short leash for him. Maybe it's the same type of thing with Sharon Moore. If he had a good season, and I think with this team, 8-4 would have been hard to fire him. 9-3, he's definitely getting another year. 10-2, they're extremely happy. But we're looking at maybe a 7-5, probably a 6-6, possibly a 5-7. That's I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's going to survive that. Let me read some stats off for you, Jay. Sharon Moore is he's a offensive side of the ball coach. And I don't think he made a good hire in the offensive coordinator. I think the offensive coordinator, I know the offensive coordinator doesn't have a lot to work with, and they've also got some blame to go in that quarterback room. They did not get another quarterback ready. Jim Harbaugh's constant flirtation with the NFL hurt their recruiting classes in the years up to the national championship. But still, you've got to go out and get a quarterback to follow JJ. You knew JJ was coming out for the most part. I mean, I know there was always some question, but chances were JJ was coming out last year. But this Michigan offense is 113th in interceptions, 118th in passing TDs, 127th in passing rating, 128th in passing first downs, 129th in passing yards per game, 129th in 10 plus yards, 130th in 20 plus yards, and 132nd in yards per pass attempt. That is an absolutely abysmal offense. And we know that Michigan did not have to have a strong passing game to win a national championship last year, but you have to have some passing game. That you're never going to win in today's game with those kind of numbers. So I think you've got some fault on the coaching. They did not get a quarterback ready. They did not have anybody out of the portal. I know that it was a little bit late out of the portal because they were kind of waiting. Well, is JJ going to go? Is he not going to go? And they were playing all the way into January. And I get that. But why did you not have any serviceable quarterback in the wings that was already on the roster? And it's been musical chairs at quarterback this year. They're going from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback, and none of it is working.
No, it's not. I believe they're on their third quarterback, Jack Tuttle. And I thought, I was watching him play. I'm like, okay, he looks like the best one of the bunch after we watched him play at Washington. But as time has gone on, I mean, is he terrible as Orgy or Davis Warren? No, but is he still bad? Yeah. I can tell you, I watched the Illinois game, Michael, and watching that game, number one, let me just say, Illinois sucks. They're no good. They got outplayed at home by Kansas, and Kansas sucks, but Illinois was lucky to win that game. Let me just preface that. But Michigan actually did outplay Illinois. I know the score doesn't look great, but they actually outplayed them statistically. The difference was the 3 turnovers, the fumbles by Donovan Edwards, the interceptions by Jack Tuttle. That was the difference in the game. And honestly, man, Michigan just didn't seem mentally into the game. I don't know what it was. They were just lacking an edge, similar to like a Ryan Day team, but with just less talent.
Yep.
It was very clear watching that game. They are much more talented than Illinois. Much more talented than Illinois.
Yeah.
Like I said, Illinois was lucky to beat Kansas at home. Tuttle didn't play terrible. I think he threw 1 interception. I don't know where the third turnover came from, but what is hurting Michigan, and you kind of alluded to it, is their lack of recruiting. You're pointing to the quarterback. Where in the fuck are their wide receivers, man? The wide receivers out there are not scaring people. Yeah, they have a great tight end, but you got to have some dudes who can get open against man press, or else your quarterback is, you're going to be like Kyle McCord out here in the living room that I was seeing, throwing 5 interceptions. By the way, yeah, he actually has thrown 5 interceptions.
5 interceptions tonight?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
5
gosh.
interceptions, dude. Freaking crazy.
I mean, that's exactly right. I don't know what they have done in the quarterback room, with the wide receiver room. They've never had fantastic wide receivers, but even for them, it's down. The defense is good talent wise. It's not like it was last year. It's pretty good, but you can't win with a pretty good defense and the type of quarterback play that they have. And, even their run game, has not been what you thought it would be. The offensive line has struggled at times, started off really rough. And they're just struggling to get any traction anywhere. And like you pointed out, the inspiration that they played with, you're 4-2. You go out to Illinois, you win that game, and you're 5-2. And now you've really got a chance to make a solid season out of this somewhat rebuilding year. but they didn't look ready. They didn't look prepared. They didn't look like they were ready to give it everything they had. And I think a lot of this goes on coaching. I do think there's a talent problem in the sense of if you're comparing it to last year's team, there's definitely a talent problem. Do I think there was enough talent to definitely win 8 games, maybe 9 games? Yeah, I think that there was. And I think that Sharon Moore has shown that he is a bit over his head. I'm not blaming him. He's a young coach, 38 years old, never been a head coach. You don't cut your teeth at places like Michigan and Ohio State.
I couldn't agree more, man. I could not agree more. Michigan is not a place that you can cut your teeth in, man. Yeah, I mean, it's just like Ward Manuel, like he actually made a great basketball hire, by the way. He hired the Dusty May from I think Florida Atlantic. I think that's his name. The guy I think Ohio State probably should have gotten, but Michigan got him because Ohio State fell in love with Jake Diebler. But you're right, man. Like Michigan made a bad call there, and they're paying for it now. But I will say this: I do not see Michigan losing at home to Michigan State.
Probably
I do not. No, I do not. I do not see them losing at home to Michigan State. I know a lot of people are freaking out about that one, but I just, when I look at that game, I'm like, it's at Michigan. Michigan is still not a bad team, and Michigan State's not, they're just average. And Michigan has like the mental edge over them still, which they also have over Ohio State too. So I don't see them losing that game, but there is some actual good news in Michigan land, by the way. Did you happen to follow recruiting this week, Michael?
Well, I mean, I've kept up a bit of what's going on, but I don't know anything about Michigan or did they land a big time recruit?
They did land a big time recruit, a type of recruit that Ohio State is just unable to get. Can you guess what position that is?
Edge.
You're close. Other side of the ball.
Oh, offensive tackle.
Yes, they landed the number 3 composite offensive tackle in the country. Andrew Babala was his name, 5-star from Kansas.
Yeah.
Which is an odd place to get, but yeah, man, congrats to them. But the only question you have to ask is Sharon Moore going to be there next year? Because if you fire him, you're probably losing this guy. And there are rumors out there. There are rumors out there, Michael, that Michigan is starting to pony up the money to bring Bryce Underwood home. And if you don't know who Bryce Underwood is the number 1 player in the country. The number 1 player in the country that resides in the state of Michigan. He's outside of Ann Arbor, Detroit area. And do you know where he's going to school?
Go ahead and say it. Yeah, I know, but tell everybody.
He's going to LSU. Why in the fucking hell could somebody from the urban area of Michigan go down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Oh, that's right. You did used to live there. Brian Kelly, I think he's actually a solid coach. He's a weird guy. I have a hard time believing, what did LSU do to lure that guy to Baton Rouge? Michigan fans, if you're in the chat, please tell us, what happened? That shouldn't happen. That it just shouldn't happen. So I'm crossing my fingers that they can get Bryce Underwood. I want to see the Big Ten have the best players. And you know what? If Ohio State loses games because of it, fuck Ohio State. You know what? That just means we can move on from our shitty coaches faster and get people that actually can coach against good teams.
I'm with you on keeping the talent in the Big Ten. I want Ohio State to play against the best. I want Ohio State to be prepared for playoff runs year in and year out. If you're a Michigan fan, you probably want Michigan to be prepared for playoff runs in the future. And so it's only a positive to be playing against some of the best, most elite players. And when you have a player like that, you have to keep top Midwest players in the Midwest. You cannot let them go to the South. I know that you're always going to lose a few here or there as we're going to go down and get some of theirs. But, a kid like this in state, you got to pony up. You got to do whatever it takes to try and get him. Sounds like you have heard some rumors that they're doing that. And so best wishes to you, Michigan. I hope you get him.
Yeah, I hope so too. We'll see what happens. I mean, I've been trying to read into this some. I mean, it's not like I follow Michigan like I follow Ohio State, but I do try and get a pulse of the Big Ten and the teams around the Big Ten. Do you happen to know what happened to Will Johnson? So I know he got hurt against Illinois. Now there are rumors surfacing that he's going to maybe sit out the year, but I think those are a bunch of weird Ohio State fans with those comments making baseless claims. I don't know anything about Will Johnson. I know he didn't play the rest of the Illinois game. Could have made a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, I am not. I have not heard anything definitive on Will Johnson. I've heard those rumors that he might be, thinking about kind of riding off into the sunset. But, I don't know. Michigan fans, maybe you guys have heard more than we have. But Jay, what does this Michigan team have to, or what is this Michigan program? What is your suggestion? I mean, if you're a Michigan fan right now, what are you saying? What are you calling for?
Dude, I got to be honest. I don't know that you can fire Sharon Moore after 1 year because I'm looking at their schedule. If I were to guess right now, and this is just me at a 10,000-foot view, I'm looking at 7-5. I think they finish. Actually, no, not 7-5. 6-6. I think they finished 6-6, which I know that is crazy. But here, let's look at the schedule. Let's just go right down the line right now, Michael. Shall we do that together?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are on the schedule. So, first game, Michigan State at home. That's a win. Oregon at home. That's a loss. At Indiana, I'm going to say that's a loss. Northwestern at home. That's a win, but it's not going to be easy because Northwestern, Michigan's offense isn't the type of offense that really gives Northwestern problems. And then at Ohio State, that game's probably going to be closer than what we would want because Michigan has the mental edge, but Michigan no longer has the coaching edge. I would say the coaching is fairly similar. Now. Sharon Moore and Ryan Day are pretty much on the same level of coaching, which is not very good. So that means they finish the season 2-3, and they finish 6-6. And I don't know if that gets them into a bowl game or not. I mean, it probably does because they're Michigan, but damn, man. I knew there were problems with Michigan in game 2 when I saw them against Texas because I said it there. I'm not all that impressed with Texas. Quinn Ewers isn't that good. All of that got shown to light against Georgia. And Michigan did not do the game plan that I told them to do against Texas. Yeah, Georgia's more talented than Michigan. They can do a little bit more. But you know what, Michigan? At least fucking try. At least push the pedal to the metal on Quinn Ewers. You should have had Alex Orji playing because I don't know that Texas is that – well, hold on. I don't know if Texas was that much better than USC at the time. Now, USC's gotten worse since then. We're about to talk about them. But if you start Alex Orji in that game, you probably have a close game down to the wire because you would have at least not turned the ball over and been a run dominant time of possession type team.
Controlled the ball. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think 6-6 puts Moore at a toss up. I think he's, I think he could keep his job at that. I think 7-5, he's definitely keeping it. 5-7. I think that there's a very good case, maybe to move on because that's an utter failure. Even for the diminished roster that they have as compared to 2023. So there's no easy answers in Ann Arbor right now. Number one, you've got to recruit. You've got to keep recruiting. Harbaugh, we've given him all kinds of credit on this show. He learned from his mistakes. He adapted. He did what it took. He was looking for inches. A lot of Ohio State fans want to whine about the sign stealing and all of that. I don't buy into any of that. I know maybe it was an advantage, and they got a national championship out of it. So Jim Harbaugh was looking for inches. He was looking for ways to get over the hump. He had lost close games to Urban Meyer. He'd gotten blown out by Urban Meyer. He'd lost playoff games. He'd not done good in the postseason. He was a lot like Ryan Day, and that's why I said we can stop with the Ryan Day Kirby Smart comparisons. That's not a good comparison. Go to the last episode to find out why that's not a good comparison. But Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh are the comparison. And so Harbaugh learned. Harbaugh adapted. Harbaugh got better. He looked for every edge he could, and he got it done. But he did hurt the program with his recruiting because his recruiting was generally pretty good, but it was not good those last few years. Not nearly as good as it should have been. And why would it have been? Recruits were not knowing what Harbaugh was going to do because he kept interviewing with NFL teams, during the close of recruiting season. And it had a big impact on them. So they've got to get recruiting. And if Moore is 6-6 or 5-7, I think you got to seriously consider moving on from him. You definitely have to move on. This is my definitive rage is you definitely have to move on from Kurt Campbell. I don't think that was a great hire at offensive coordinator to begin with. I'm not really sure what they were seeing. He's a young guy, really has done nothing. He was the OC at Old Dominion and didn't do very good at Old Dominion, by the way. Was not tearing it up at Old Dominion. So not a great promotion there. I think you're definitely going to have to get rid of him, find another offensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator that can appeal to quarterbacks. You have to have a quarterback. Obviously, you never have had an amazing passing game under the Jim Harbaugh era, but you did have a 5-star top 32 in the nation quarterback under center. And that definitely went a long way into the national championship that you won. And you're going to have to get good quarterback play again to compete at a high level moving forward because the Big Ten quarterback play is improving. I mean, Ohio State generally has good quarterback play. You've got Dylan Raiola in Nebraska. USC typically has good quarterback play. And so the quarterback play is stepping up, and Michigan's going to have to follow suit.
Yeah, I agree. And, what the thing is with Michigan is they could throw when they had to last year. Like JJ McCarthy it was so weird, man. Like he was kind of like spastic at times, but he was very elusive and he could just make the big runs when they needed to make the big runs. And he could make the big throws when he needed to make the big throws. Like sometimes some of those throws got in there. It's like, how the fuck did that get in there type throw? But
yeah, he
yeah,
did.
man, it was, yeah, well, it was unfortunate that he was out for the year for the Vikings too. I'd have liked to have seen what he had there. And yeah, I don't know. I think that does it for Michigan, Michael. Do you have anything else to add there?
Nope. I was going to say the same. Let's move on to USC, another blue blood that is definitely in worse shape than the Michigan program because they don't have the recent success that the Michigan program has. They haven't had a tremendous amount of success recently at all. And they do not have a rookie coach per se. They still have a coach that's relatively young, but he did get head coaching experience at the University of Oklahoma. And that, of course, is Lincoln Riley. And so USC is Lincoln Riley continues to show that he's just not able to get it together. He's not able to get it together on both sides of the ball. He's got a talent deficiency on the defensive side of the ball. That's what he always did in Oklahoma. The talent was on the offensive side. He recruited it there. It was very good. And the defensive side was always a step down. And when they got in these big games against the big boys, against the elite of the elite, you can't have a defense that is not, as talent rich and well coached as the offensive side of the ball.
I've thought about something. Something came to me as like an epiphany today, Michael.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
What?
I think Lincoln Riley is a poor man's version of Ryan Day.
Yeah.
That is just sad to say. And man, that is the ultimate insult if you're a damn coach because he's known as an offensive mind. But, as bad as Ryan Day is in big games, he does win games against teams that, suck and doesn't lose those games. But here you are, USC this season, losing on the road to Minnesota, losing on the road to Maryland. Now, yeah, you lost at Michigan. They're not a bad team. I know, like, we just ripped into Michigan. I wouldn't call them a bad team, like I said that. But losing on the road to Minnesota and Maryland is just despicable. Losing at home to Penn State, okay, that's valiant and everything. But damn, how far has this program fallen? I mean, look at even last season, man. Last season, they finished 7-5 with a former Heisman Trophy winner, and they were supposed to be a juggernaut. They went to Notre Dame, lost last year, lost 48-20, lost in a shootout to Washington, lost decisively to Oregon. It's just, I don't know. He just hasn't figured it out. Now, he did make a really, really good hire in D'Anton Lynn, former Penn State Nittany Lion, by the way. I like what he's done defensively, but, Bear Alexander quitting on the year and redshirting and to transfer, like that's a problem. That's a
Yeah.
real problem, like culturally with that program. So, and Michael, it
Yeah.
is said. Go
Dragonfly.
ahead.
Yeah.
What were you going to
I was
say?
just going to say Dragonflight just well, Dragonflight just popped in with 5 laughy emojis. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you for your contribution, Dragonflight. But yeah, I think you nailed it on USC. I mean, it's just unacceptable. But there are some cultural problems that they are encountering out there in SoCal, in Southern California. And there was a great post on the USC Trojan
Yes.
message board that outlined some of those problems. And I think it's realistic, that it is going to be challenging for them to return to elite status. I believe that Michigan has a lot of the components to return to elite status if they do the right things. They're still a top 10 job in the country. I would put USC still as a top 10 job in the country, probably. But there's some issues. California as a region, it's not gaining players at this stage. I mean, not that there's not still massive population in California and still massive amounts of players out there, but they're not gaining players population wise in the sense that people are not moving to California right now. They're moving out of California to places like Texas, Arizona, Nevada. Even here in Ohio, Jay, I've talked to several people that have come in from California. They're moving everywhere in the country but California. And so there's also some cultural issues that California is really a soft liberal state, and they don't promote contact sports anymore. I have a good friend who coached with me last year in the Cincinnati Greater Youth League. Oh, Dragonflight's laughing at the poor man Ryan Day comment. So
Yeah, I
he,
saw that. I laughed at that. I was going to address that. It's correct though. I mean, there is really no other way to
yeah,
describe him.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so there's anyhow, he coached with me here and he moved out to California. And he's coaching youth football out there. And he said, number one, it's hard to find. And his kid's in 7th grade. So they don't have junior high football out there. He's in Los Angeles. He's right in one of their major cities. They don't have junior high football out there. So you've just got to kind of play in these disparate leagues that they have. He said it's difficult to find a tackle league. Everything's flag out there. He said that the parents are like much more cautious about hitting. It's the culture is just much softer. And that's going to be a problem moving forward. And then there's also some administration issues. It's a very left wing. Not that almost every university is somewhat left wing to an extent, but it's a very left wing, administration. Michigan has always been a very liberal leaning administration, but they get it. They get it that you have to have football. You have to have these sports. USC seems to be farther away than that. They can't grasp that this is a massive part of their university. I mean, University of Alabama, no kids in Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania used to talk about going to University of Alabama. Like when I was in high school, nobody outside of the South talked about University of Alabama, going to Alabama. Not that many people outside of Alabama talked about Alabama. But now it is one of the most, it has some of the highest out-of-state applicants of any state school in the country. Why is that? I'd say it's probably because they hired Nick Saban and he won 5 or 6 or however many national championships he won. And the Alabama brand became associated with winning and good things. So it's very important, when you have the ability to have a top flight football program, to have that top flight football program. And USC has that ability and they haven't utilized it. I don't think they've done what they can to maximize it. Dragonflight said Oregon ?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, man. So obviously this is not a political podcast, but you have to look at what the real systemic problem is. In California, people are moving out. It's still it's interesting. like Gavin Newsom, like, let's be real, he sucks as a governor. Probably the worst governor in the country.
Well, his own
Uh,
state doesn't like him. I mean, they recalled him twice.
why the hell is he still there?
Well, because they couldn't get anybody who would, they'd recall him and then somebody run against him and then they vote for him again.
That is so crazy. Anywho, the state of California still has, now I guess it's easier to sustain something like this, but they have the best high school football program in the history of high school football programs in Santa Ana Mater Dei. If I ever go to California, man, and visit, you best believe I'm going to go to a Mater Dei game on a Friday night. Like, that is just it would be just so much fun. I followed that program because, they have so many, talented players, and they always go into Texas and win and beat all these teams. They beat Bishop Gorman from Las Vegas. Like, but then you have like programs like, USC that are struggling, UCLA that's struggling. So I guess the question is, Michael, that is a good point. Oregon is still having success when USC isn't. But again, it's not all left-wing politics that has destroyed USC. It's a bunch of other things too. Bad coaching hires. Maybe the college itself, maybe the Oregon college, Oregon as a state has a Democratic governor, but how does their college feel about sports? I mean, we know that Phil Knight pours a lot of money into Oregon. You see their facilities. Like, there are teams that can still succeed if they have big time boosters or, great facilities. And I mean, I've never been to Oregon. I've heard it's pretty beautiful out there, but you go look on a map of where Oregon, the University of Oregon is located. They appear to be out in the middle of nowhere in Eugene, but I don't know. Could be a cool place to visit. I thought about going a couple weeks ago. I can tell you that.
Is Dragonflight saying that people are moving from California to Oregon, or what was the Oregon comment?
I think he
missed that.
was like just asking about Oregon. He thinks like Oregon is in a similar like demographic shift. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Oregon, like half of the state wanted to secede and basically be governed similar to like Idaho or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, anytime you meet somebody from Oregon, typically, and I know some people from Oregon who have moved here, but every time I've met somebody from Oregon, they will say to me, I'm from such and such Oregon, and they'll say, we're nothing like Portland. Like, we're not like that. Like, that's just Portland. Like, the rest of Oregon is different. And so, but the problem is all the population is in Portland, and the population's a bit disparate outside of that. So, however the population votes is how they do things out there. So, but they make a point to tell me, yeah, Oregon is not that. Like, Portland is its own thing, and there's a lot of other areas of Oregon, like, we're normal. And so I don't know. I don't know that much
he
about
just
Oregon.
made a point, and he made a good point. They are a liberal state, not a high school football state. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean,
but the thing is, like, my point goes back to 4 because they have, they're not the same exact situation as USC. USC, I believe in that post you were referring to, the college really like is conservative in a way with like being progressive in the NIL era, having a lot of red tape and like moving things forward and, being more open to like athletes and stuff. Well, Oregon is not. I mean, they've pretty much embraced NIL. They have Phil Knight. They have the facilities. They are not like USC at all in that regard. And they're very much a national program. They recruit from everywhere.
And I don't think the university is having the internal issues that USC has as far as getting support for, because I think they've always, very much valued that Oregon brand. They love the flashy uniforms, all the different uniforms, all the gear from Nike and everything like that. And yeah, like you said, of course, Phil Knight is pouring millions into the NIL.
And I want to make a point here. Who are Oregon's big wins against the last couple of years? Who have they beaten that's big time? Honestly,
nobody.
No,
other than Ohio State.
Ohio State, but in our eyes, that's not all that impressive. Ohio State doesn't beat any good teams. So it's like, okay, Oregon, you beat Ohio State. Yeah, they beat Ohio State, but Ohio State doesn't beat any good teams. Like, go out and beat Georgia. Don't lose 50-7 in the 2022 season opener against Georgia. Don't lose 2 games to Washington in the same season.
Yeah.
Don't get blown out in other games. Like, they lost a couple years ago to, I believe, Auburn to start the year or something like that. You can't lose to those teams in the SEC, man. I got to see Oregon beat somebody that's not Ohio State before you can really, really start to get their, get, noticed on a national scale. Yeah, I understand they're ranked number 1 and, they beat Ohio State at home. Yeah, that's a good win, not a great win. I need to see them beat the top of the SEC. That's what Oregon needs to do. So again,
Well,
back to USC, man. It is really, really sad, Michael, that they're in the state they are. They are in the state, not like literal state, but the state they're in right now.
mhm,
Because 20 years ago, when they had Pete Carroll, who, in my
mhm.
opinion, was probably the best college football coach of all time. I would put him above Saban. I would put
Yeah.
him
Well, he was definitely, yeah, he was great.
he all right, can you imagine if they had a playoff back then? Like in the years like when he was the coach of USC, how many titles would he have won? And he didn't coach, I don't believe he coached half as long as Saban did at Alabama.
Yeah.
That
No,
he would
I
have
mean, he
won
would
at least 2 other ones.
sure. Yeah. I mean, because he would lose a game, in the middle of the season to an Oregon State or some team he shouldn't lose to and be 11-1. And back in those days, that would cost you a chance at the BCS. But he would always go to the bowl and drill whoever he played. Carroll, a lot of the Carroll teams, like it didn't matter if you played a Big Ten team, an SEC team, a Big 12 team, like they just beat everybody. And
Yeah, and I
so,
loved the way they played. They played football the
yep.
way it's meant to be played, and they were so aggressive on defense, but they had not a wide open, it was a pro style offense, but it was a pro style offense that made you defend every blade of grass. I will never forget the 2006 Rose Bowl that they played Michigan. Um, Michigan, that Michigan defense against the run was great. Ohio State exposed them in the air. Well, in the second half, I remember I forget the announcer, the PA, the color analyst was saying USC wants to run the ball, but they can't. What do they do in the second half? They use those great wide receivers and Steve Smith and Dwayne Jarrett and just light Michigan up, man. They just
Mhm.
lit them up because they just started throwing on every down and Michigan couldn't defend it. And then the game was over.
Yep. Yeah. So, Jay, what do you think as we're kind of concluding our USC talk and moving on to whatever we've got left with the Big Ten? Do you think Lincoln Riley's job's on the line this year?
Yeah, it has to be. I would say his job is more on the line than Sharon Moore. I would still give Sharon Moore another year. Lincoln Riley is definitely on the hot seat right now. I mean, again, I have not really felt the pulse of the USC community over there, and I feel bad for them. No one could have ever thought that Lincoln Riley would have the struggles that he did, considering he was a pretty good coach at Oklahoma. He never his claim to fame was his first season at Oklahoma when they, obviously they went into Ohio State, won that game, won the Big 12, should have beat Georgia. They choked bad against Georgia, but that was really his best team as a coach, was a bunch of Bob Stoops' players and Baker Mayfield, the walk-on quarterback. That was his best team, because since then, he's still had solid teams, but it seems like anytime he plays a team that's really good, he gets blown out.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at their schedule, I mean, 6-6 is going to be a tall order at a current record of 3-4. Could easily be worse than that. Definitely could be at least that. I guess there's an outside chance at 7-6, but it's not going to be a good season regardless. I think if he has a losing record, it's time for him to go. It's time to move on. The Lincoln Riley experiment failed. If I'm a USC fan, that might even be what I'm rooting for. I might even be rooting for a lot of wins the rest of the season. Just let's get done. Let's move on from this. There's not any massive big names out there to go get, but I mean, you can't just have a coach that not only doesn't elevate the program, but the program continues to fall on his watch.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at posts right now on their board right now. It's just they're just pointing out, their administration is just not locked into NIL. And as much as you and I both hate NIL, it's here to stay. So if it's going to
Yep.
be here, like Nick Saban said, this is going to kill college sports. But if you're going to implement it, then we're going to make sure that we use it to the best of our advantage. And I don't know. I don't know if there needs to be any kind of salary cap in place for that. I actually don't think there probably should be, because I like Major League Baseball. I don't like, I think the NFL sucks. The NFL sucks. Like, the NFL is all built for parity, and I think parity sucks. I
Yeah.
like to see teams rise up from the ashes and have things going against them and rise up and win a World Series, maybe with less talent. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but
Right.
I mean, look at the Devil Rays. I mean, it can happen.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, that's going to be difficult to get back to an extremely high level if you're not going to, beef up that NIL program. But Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat, and I would like to see USC be a power again. I would love to have a strong Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, USC. I think that'd be a great 4 plus Penn State, great top 5 in the conference. But we're a ways from that as we currently sit. Jay, what do you got for us? I know you're wanting to talk about Indiana a little bit.
Man, yeah, we kind of have to talk about Indiana, man, because obviously they factor into Ohio State, but I swear there's a good chance Ohio State doesn't make the college football playoffs, considering what Ohio State's schedule is the rest of the year. Man, Indiana is very impressive, man. Now, I will say this. I told you I was never sold on Nebraska. I didn't think they were any good. They got exposed this past Saturday. You don't lose 56-7 to Indiana. I don't care, how good Indiana is. Like, Nebraska got exposed. They suck. Their season's over. Whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, Indiana's really good. Curtis Rourke is their quarterback. Transfer from Ohio U, where I believe he was like first team All MAC or something like that. It's like, damn, Ohio State really missed there. I'd rather have him than Will Howard. But a lot of, Kirk Cignetti is their head coach, former James Madison coach. But I think like that machine was rolling even before he got there. But man, he has instilled into them toughness, great play calling on both sides of the ball. He is kind of like Pete Carroll-ish in the way he like coaches football, man. The guy is a beast. And there is an argument to be made that I don't think there is an argument. He is the best coach in the Big Ten. He is the best coach in the Big Ten right now, and it's not even close.
I can't disagree with that. I mean, I think he may take his lumps a little bit next year. They lose a lot off that team, but if they keep him at Indiana for 3, 4, 5 years, I think that he's going to elevate that Indiana program. And so I'm all for it. I'm here for it. Stronger Indiana is fine too. Let's get the Big Ten stronger. It's good for everybody. But yeah, it's impressive what he's done there. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Buckeyes take him on. Now, of course,
it's unfortunate they didn't play like anybody great in the non-conference. Like last year, it's not like Louisville's any good, but they played last year against Louisville in a neutral site game. They lost. It was close, but they did lose. Like, man, I would have loved to have seen them play that game this year against Louisville. Then we could have gotten a better look at them, because they, to this date, they haven't played anyone of note. I mean, UCLA, I would say, was probably their most impressive win, going on the road and winning 42-13. That was impressive.
Yep.
But the rest of the Big Ten here, Northwestern, Maryland, they all suck, man. Like, again, they're doing what they need to do against shitty teams, but they have a very explosive offense. I believe it's one of the top 5 offenses in the country statistically, Michael.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's definitely good offense, and they're going to get tested here in weeks to come. And I mean, we'll see what they can end up. But I mean, if he can get 10 wins at Indiana, boy, hats off.
So they play Washington at home this week. That's a
big game for them. Washington's not a great team.
Game.
Yeah.
They'll win that. They will win that game. But then they go to Michigan State, and I think they probably win that game too, but it's a little dicey. They play Michigan at home. Yeah, I already said it. I said it, Michigan fans. Yeah, they're going to beat you. Hell, they're going to be undefeated when they march into Columbus on November 23rd. Can you believe that? The Indiana Hoosiers, if they do that, they are going to the college football playoff no matter what happens in that Ohio State game. They're in.
Yeah, I hope they are. I hope they are undefeated going into it. It'll make for a huge matchup. and be very interesting to watch this upstart Indiana program against what is supposed to be an Ohio State powerhouse roster.
Yeah, supposed to be. It's like kind of like a team of a bunch of all-stars. Again, I don't really want to talk about Ohio State. Ohio State pisses me off right now. So
Right.
fuck that shit, man. Looking around the rest of the conference, man, obviously USC and Rutgers play at 11 o'clock tomorrow night, man. Wow. Oregon and Illinois play this weekend. I believe Oregon's just going to blow the doors off Illinois. Illinois is no good. Oregon should blow the doors off of them. Now here's a good, decent game. Penn State is on the road versus Wisconsin. Michael, do you have any initial thoughts on that game?
I know some people who are, they're predicting a Wisconsin upset. They think Luke's going to get his first real big win at Penn State. I'm not buying it. I'm going to go with Penn State winning that game, but it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be tuning into that game. I'm definitely also going to be tuning into Michigan State and Michigan. I'll probably have both of those have both of those games on side by side with one another just to, check them out. But I am probably picking Penn State to beat Wisconsin just because I think Luke Fickell isn't very good. I don't think he's a Big Ten coach. I continue to say that. Wisconsin has played better lately, but they haven't played anyone that's any good. They played at Rutgers. They look good doing that. I give them credit, but Rutgers has been exposed. They're no good. Schiano needs fired. Greg Schiano needs fired. He is not a Big Ten level coach anymore. Yeah, he had 2005, 2006 time with Rutgers, did great. I had a good friend who played for him during those years, but he is not the coach of back then, and he is not keeping the best players in New Jersey home. If you are not keeping the best players in New Jersey home, then why are you at Rutgers? Get the fuck out and get somebody in there who doesn't let the best players in New Jersey go to the SEC. There's no reason for those players to go to the SEC over Rutgers or even over Maryland for that matter.
Sure. I mean, if Ryan Day was going in there and plucking them on a consistent basis, I'd say keep Greg Schiano. But they're not.
Yeah, he's not doing that.
Yeah, they're not losing them to Ohio State. They're losing guys to the South all the time. And,
yeah, exactly. So they just need to get somebody else in there. They need to get somebody else in there. Yeah, I mean, we're doing like a kind of a Big Ten roundup right now. We're kind of all over the place. But again, this is a Big Ten episode. This is not a singular team episode. We're kind of moving around. Yeah, we had the two focal points, but yeah, man, I think Penn State's going to beat Wisconsin just because I think Luke Fickell is just no good. Not saying that Franklin is. I don't know. I'm not sold on Penn State as being an elite team. Yeah, they're good, but they're not like a team that's really going to compete for a title because their skill positions just aren't good enough. Their secondary isn't good enough. They're just not talented in the spots where like teams that can throw it around. I mean, you saw it against USC. They got pretty much lit up by USC. And again, that was a skull dragging, just bloody knuckled game, man. Like it was a tough game. They won, credit to them, but they were kind of lucky to win too.
Yep.
They had to score late, I believe, to tie it and send it overtime. I'm trying to remember.
Yep. And Drew Aller made some big fourth down throws in that game.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he made a couple to Julian Fleming, our boy Julian Fleming.
Yeah. What else we got on the docket, Jay? Any other Big Ten coverage before we wrap this episode up? Thank you guys who have been watching. We've had some tuning in here tonight, so thanks for giving us your time.
Nothing off the top of my head, man. Nothing off the top of my head. Obviously we know Ohio State plays Nebraska. We didn't cover that. Oh, I just see something popped in. You guys are the only ones telling the truth. Hey, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dragonflight. That means a lot, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dragonflight. Spread the word.
Yeah, man. We're slowly coming along here, man. Don't you worry. But yeah, man, the rest of the Big Ten, sucks outside of those couple games. Like Northwestern plays Iowa. I don't know if you could pay me to watch that game.
Right.
Maryland and Minnesota, same thing applies.
Yeah.
It's just like those are, I am going to tune in obviously to Washington, Indiana in our game. But yeah, man, nothing else left on the Big Ten docket. I don't even know around college football, anything big this weekend. Let me look here. College Game Day is going to Indiana, by the way.
Oh, all right. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's their first time ever.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, I don't know that they've ever, Notre Dame plays Navy. I'll peek at that one. And Vanderbilt's at home against Texas.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I
See how
think they
Texas-
could win that game.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas is not overly impressive, and Vanderbilt's not a bad team. So, yeah, man, that's it around college football outside of the Big Ten. I don't have anything else, Michael.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching. You guys that watch after the fact, appreciate you watching as well. Have a good one, and we'll be back next Monday with our Monday episode. All right. Bye.